And here for some chase or fade, DraftKings contributor Tim Finnegan. So we are breaking down DFS or sportsbook plays here for UFC 261 on Saturday. The main event features Kamaru Usman against Jorge Masvidal. So Usman's the second highest priced fighter on the slate, dude. You chasing him, or you want to fade him for a different high priced player?
I'm going to chase Usman. So there was a DraftKings rule change recently, and if you look at Usman's first fight against Masvidal, he originally finished with 108 DraftKings fantasy points under the old scoring system. But since then, there's been a rule change, and now he's listed at 156 DraftKings fantasy points for that same fight. So this new scoring criteria really fits Usman's fighting style like a glove, because he throws a lot of strikes that didn't count under the old system because they're close distance strikes. They weren't being classified as significant strikes, but now they're being classified in the scoring system. So he has easily the highest DraftKings fantasy point average on this entire slate. He's averaging 124 DraftKings fantasy points per fight, which is like by far the most. I would just pay up for him because I really like him in this matchup.
What about who you may be like leaning towards at the top of the price list, but you're also going to be fading in this event? So someone that people would really like, but you're like, no, stay away from.
So Dwight Grant is 9,200. He's a big favorite on DraftKings Sportsbook. He's minus 240. So he's in a good position to win the fight. But in terms of fantasy scoring, I'm not really crazy about paying up for him. He doesn't really produce a lot of volume. He's only landing about 3 significant strikes per minute. He doesn't land a lot of takedowns. In his last win versus Alan Joban, he only scored 45 DraftKings fantasy points due to low striking volume, and he got like no grappling points. So if you're going to be paying up for somebody, I don't see the volume here with Grant. I would fade him.
What about which fighter you are chasing for some value though on this slate?
So Jessica Andrade, she's 6,700. She's the cheapest fighter on the entire slate. Now she's facing Valentina Shevchenko, who's awesome, and Valentina's a lot bigger than her. She like towered over her at the weigh-ins. So I'm not necessarily picking her to win, but if you want to take a chance on somebody with some upside, Andrade lands a lot of volume. She's landing over 6 significant strikes per minute. And if you're looking for an upside play in tournaments, like that's exactly the type of fighter you want to try to roster, because she has so much volume upside and can really rack up a lot of fantasy points. So I would look at her for some value.
How about an underdog you are chasing on the DraftKings Sportsbook in this event?
Uriah Hall, he's only a slight underdog to Chris Weidman. He's about plus 100. Chris Weidman's about minus 125. Weidman at one point in time was elite. Like he was a great fighter in his prime, but he's way past his prime now. Like he's been knocked out 5 times in his last 7 fights. And once your chin goes, it never tends to come back. Uriah Hall, most of his wins are by knockout. 12 of his 16 career wins are by knockout. So, if Weidman can't really take a punch anymore, like that's a bad sign. I would look at Uriah Hall in this fight.
Props. Which ones are you chasing for UFC 261?
So I'll go right back to the Uriah Hall prop bet. He's plus 195 on DraftKings Sportsbook to win by KO or TKO. And Chris Weidman has lost 5 of his last 7 fights by KO or TKO. So, 12 of Hall's 16 career wins are by KO or TKO. So this matchup could really produce a knockout here. So I would look at that.
Slate approved pick time, Tim. Your favorite bet or DFS play for UFC 261?
So we'll go back to question 1 when I said I was chasing Kamaru Usman at 9,400. He has such explosive fantasy potential under this new scoring system because he gets a lot of control time. He throws a lot of close distance strikes. And I don't see any way Masvidal can really win this fight. Like Masvidal has a puncher's chance because he's a good striker and he can win by knockout. But Usman has more margin for error because he can win this fight standing and he can win this fight grappling. Like if he's getting picked apart standing, he can just turn this into a wrestling match and take Masvidal down and work him over that way. So I would pay up for Usman at 9,400. He just has so much upside and he has such a safe floor.